this episode of the Brain Surgeon's Take, we will be discussing Should Tua Retire with ESPN analyst and former NFL quarterback EJ Manuel, as well as neurosurgeon and former NFL player Dr. Myron Rolle. Dive into the mindset of two professional athletes as they consider the pros and cons of Tua Tagovailoa's career decisions. Should Tua continue to follow his dream and pursue his passion of playing football in the NFL, or should he focus on the future and retire to preserve his health and brain function? Much more on this podcast episode. Welcome back, everyone. Here's my take on EJ Manuel and Dr. Myron Rolle. They both have a unique perspective on Tua Tagovailoa's situation. As a former NFL quarterback and ESPN analyst, EJ has lived that life and understands the health risks of playing that position. As a neurosurgeon and former NFL player, Dr. Myron Rolle has treated patients with head injury and has seen the long-term consequences of multiple concussions. Tua's in a tough situation. He just signed a multi-year lucrative contract with the majority of the money guaranteed. He is also coming off the best year of his career as a top 10 NFL quarterback. But at the same time, he needs to recognize that football is temporary, and he hopes to have a long and productive life after he finishes playing. Repeated concussions has the risk of CTE and severe cognitive impairment down the road. What a terrific podcast this was. Chatting with two former NFL players was enlightening. Understanding the immense satisfaction of playing professional football while maintaining perspective on the value of life after sports. Question remains, is the reward worth the risk? Listen up as we discuss, should Tua retire? Check it out. Fellas, what's going on?
What's up, fellas?
What's happening?
Good to see you guys, man. Listen, I'm excited to have both you guys on the podcast. I've talked to you individually, but it's great to have both you on to talk about Tua's career decision, since you guys both have professional and personal ties to this decision. Would love to hear your input and very excited to talk about should Tua retire.
Yeah, I'll start, I guess, and then I'll let my younger brother, go. I think he should retire. I mean, I'm pretty blatant about that. I mean, he had two really devastating concussions a couple years ago, back to back. I mean, I think one was on the weekend, then they played like a Thursday night game, so it was even less than a week or so, and it just looks awful. And to have that level of trauma to the brain, as you know, Dr. Komatar, when you're going into this decerebrate or the cortical posturing, that's getting down to the brainstem. That's like serious injury, right? I mean, that's like some issues there, and so for us as clinicians, we sort of see that and we pause. But for like EJ and I, as former athletes too, we say, okay, we understand the competitive juices make you want to stay in the game. But when you had these issues a couple years ago, then you have a good year last year and you have the same issue again this year. It just tells me that maybe, just maybe, this is the universe's way of directing you to do something where you don't have to put your life at risk anymore, jeopardize your future. We all know how important the brain is, how important he is to his community, to his family. And I would hate to see him be less of a person because of post-concussive syndrome or things that could manifest after having these sort of blows to his head. So I am affirmative and I'm confident with my statement that I think he should retire. I should have done a couple years ago, and now having this third one, it definitely should be out. Sit the game out and involve yourself in the game in different ways, but not playing anymore.
Well said.
So, I want to ask you a question, because you, as a former NFL quarterback, take us through the mindset regarding potential, injury each and every time you get on the field, right? What is Tua thinking? What were you thinking every time you played in a game?
Well, I'll start off by saying, as far as the injury, you don't think about any of that stuff, because especially as a quarterback, and if you're a safety like Myron was, if you're a left tackle, like my left tackle Cam Irving or Bobby Hart was at FSU and Cordy Glenn in NFL, you're thinking about your job, which is to help win a football game, ultimately. If you go out onto the field thinking, I don't want to hurt this, or my shoulder hurts, or my knee hurts. Look, I had 3 knee surgeries. That's really why I moved on to TV, because I tore my meniscus 3 times on the same knee, my right knee and once on my left knee, funny enough. I don't know if the turf just had an issue with me. I don't know what it was, guys. But after that third surgery, I could just tell that my knee wasn't healing the same way. I was becoming more bone on bone. And so it was something that was in the back of my mind. And actually, I had signed with Kansas City in 2019, battling to be the backup to Patrick Mahomes that year. And again, I had surgery maybe 3 months before I got there during the spring. And again, like I just didn't feel like my old self. I wasn't as quick in a cut. I wasn't as voluntarily jumping and lunging off of that right knee just because of the sensitivity with the surgery. Now, maybe that was because I was three months post-op. But even now, I'm 5-6 years removed from that surgery, and it still hurts to this. Like when I leave from this chair to walk into the kitchen to play with my kids, I have to brace myself to get up and move. And thankfully, I have NFL line of duty disability to help cover my injury. But I'll play a devil's advocate here because when Myron and I first had this conversation on our podcast, the freshman podcast, I also agreed that Tua should retire. But guys, there's so many layers to a decision like that. And the first layer one is just this dream that we as young athletes have to be a NFL player, to play college, D1 college football. And for that to be taken away from you, whatever the circumstances is, you get cut, you get injured, that's a life altering decision to make. Like, and sure, Tua just signed for a huge deal and all that. So I don't know the stipulations within the language of his contract and what might come from, maybe there's a split if he retires early or whatever. I don't know. But I do know that's a really hard decision. I'll play devil's advocate here again. Damar Hamlin literally died on the football field in front of all of us watching that game. And he's out there as a starter for the Buffalo Bills. So naturally, and most would have said he should retire. I mean, literally, his heart stopped beating, guys, like from a blow. And so I just feel like, to answer your question, Dr. Komatar, is the mindset of an athlete, specifically a football player, is completely different. You are in a car accident multiple times throughout a football game when you get hit and when you do hit. And so I don't know. You really don't think about it. You kind of black out in a lot of those moments. You think about it after the game when it's hard for you to get out of bed, or you take a shower and all those skin, those bruises and those scratches start to come up. You forget you had it. You know what I mean? It's just one of those mindset things we don't think about.
So, Myron, I wanted to ask your opinion on the concussion protocol. People will commonly say, oh, well, they're cleared. They're not having any more symptoms. They're cleared by the protocol. It should be fine to return. Give us an example of how little we know about concussions and how inaccurate potentially that protocol can be when you're clearing people to return to play.
Yeah, that the protocol is difficult, and concussions, as you know, it's a mild form of traumatic brain injury. It's on that spectrum of TBI, but yet every person reacts differently to concussions. Every person has different symptoms. You have some people who have several symptoms: insomnia, photophobia, cognitive decline, mood lability, all sorts of things. You have some people who just have depression, some people who just have headaches, right? So you have varying sort of presentations. And so I think that makes the treatment of concussions difficult as well. We have some people who can bounce back from their symptoms a lot quicker than others. And so that also makes it challenging. How do you put a sort of logarithmic, or algorithmic formulaic approach to a treatment that is so diverse and so varied from player to player, from athlete to athlete? So I think that's where the challenge comes in. Also, like what my brother E was saying, you are fighting against the player who is subjectively telling you, I feel fine. I'm good to go. There's no problem with me. I'm straight. Yeah, there's some objective tests that you can do, the impact baseline test and other sort of neurological assessments you can use. But, a lot of times these trainers and medical professionals in the locker room are basing their decisions off of what the athlete is saying and what the front office and GM needs that player to say too. Let's call a spade a spade. There is pressure that comes from general managers, coaches, people in the front office say, this guy we're investing a lot of money in. We need this win. We need to play him. What can you do to help expedite this process? And code is, let's get him on the field. It's not sort of like, let's make this patient-centered. Let's take our time. Let's focus on his health. It's code words for, let's get him out there. Do what you can. Do what you need to do. And so feeling that weight, that pressure from a medical staff, it takes away your ability, like you and I, Dr. Komatar, would treat someone if they come into our clinic, into our outpatient office, or through the ED, we would treat them with the lens of, our medical knowledge, evidence-based medicine we've used, the training that we had in our residency, fellowships, and beyond, and we would approach it that way. Here, it's not the same. I've seen it in locker rooms. E's seen it. It's not the same. So it makes the discussion around the protocol very convoluted and very sort of murky and not as straightforward as people may think.
Well, E, let me ask you. So let's say you're Tua. What are the factors that you're taking into your decision, and who should be guiding you? Right, factors you have obviously family, but your commitment to your teammates, the organization, your guaranteed $200 million contract. How does all that play a role in your final decision if you were Tua?
Well, if I'm Tua, and I'm assuming Tua doesn't have a best friend like Dr. Myron Rolle, I would try to reach out and consult the experts in brain health and in neurosurgery, like Myron. And, I would ask the real questions of, well, what are the repercussions of what could happen if I get another concussion, or the long-term effects of when I'm not playing anymore and I'm 40, I'm 45 years old. Like, where will my mental health be at that point? What are some other case studies to prove also what you're saying? And again, I mean, Tua has more than enough money and more than enough resources to get the right knowledge, the right background, and ask the right questions to the right people. I think that's the other part. And I would be asking third-party doctors. I wouldn't be asking, no offense to the doctors at Miami Dolphins or the University of Miami, whoever. Give a little shout out to the UM right there for you, Dr. Rick. But I say all that to say there is a vested interest, like Myron just said. Like, team doctors for us at FSU or the Bills or the Tennessee Titans, whoever, ultimately want the team to win. And if you're a player that's going to play a role to help win, they're going to kind of say, hey, man, it's going to be okay. You'll be fine, though. You'll be fine. And sure, is that malpractice? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know the law with that. But I do know that certainly will happen. So I would try to seek third-party counsel. And I just know for Tua, man, it's such a hard decision to make. Because also, guys, it's beyond just the health, unfortunately. It's also the accountability to his team. He's not a guard. He's not a safety. He's not a corner. He's the quarterback. And then there's a financial investment behind Tua as well now, to where I'm sure he feels indebted to the head coach, the owner, Mr. Ross. Like, he feels like he needs to still go out there and fight for his team. That's a natural urge, man. I played with a broken leg before. Didn't know it was broken. Thought it was a bone bruise. That's what it was told to me. And mentally, I was like, all right, let me go back out there and limp around. Made a couple of throws and we won the game. We beat Notre Dame. Come to find out 2 months later, I had actually fractured it. And so, if that's a bone versus your brain, completely different story. But I'm just saying, from the mind of Tua, I'm sure he feels like he has the accountability to a team as well.
What's one of the, if I can jump in, Dr. Komatar, what's one of the worst things that's happening right now, E and Dr. Komatar, is the Dolphins are struggling offensively. I know that sounds bad.
Completely different team.
Yeah.
Completely different team, right? And so I even heard on the broadcast, one of the analysts was like, look how much different the team looks without Tua. Look at how, the team has regressed without Tua. Look how Tyreek Hill is upset because he doesn't have Tua in there. It's like the narrative is now being pushed that Tua's got to get back on the field. Like, we need him back here. And so you're hearing that chirping. That's pressure that's coming from outside sources to also influence this young man's decision. It's like, it's unbelievable. If the Dolphins came out and said, we're going to get 400 yards next week, and we have, this darts thrown around, Waddle, Hill, all killing it, Achane killing it, then you could sort of like, okay, we can let Tua rest, do his thing, have some time to make his decision. I think the stove is heating up. I think the stove's heating up around him and making his decision, because you're hearing the chirping birds talk about how the team looks so different, right, E?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll make a quick comment here, Dr. Rick. So I work on the TV side now. ESPN, ABC, whoever is putting on the Monday Night Football game, for example, that game that we saw, they won it and slated and scheduled that game for a reason, to have the stars, Tyreek Hill, Tua Tagovailoa out there to play. So ultimately, again, it's beyond just the health of himself. There's a lot of business decisions that were made behind this as well, and his availability to go out there and be a star for entertainment too.
Now, one of the factors, I know Myron brought it up earlier, but he had 2 massive concussions in the past, and then this hit did not look that severe. And I think that what the science is showing, and Myron, again, I want you to kind of talk a little bit about it, but over time, multiple concussions, you become more prone to concussions. So now is Tua at risk for not even a major hit, having another concussion? And if you're concussion prone, does that change your opinion about him retiring? I believe so, but wanted to get your opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And as you know, you have one concussion, the second impact syndrome is real. Your chance of getting a second concussion exponentially increases. A third one increases again and keeps going up that gradation scale. And so it makes it much easier to sort of cross that threshold. And so maybe not even a violent hit like you saw, which is interesting. E brought up DeMar Hamlin. Hamlin was the one that hit Tua
Right.
this last play. And again, it wasn't a violent hit, wasn't a hard strike, but the next time, it may not even be a hit to a player or a hit to the ground. It may be some sort of whiplash effect where that brain shakes into that thick skull and then he has a concussion that way, which is in years past, before he had these concussions, it wouldn't affect him, but now it might. And so that's what I'm saying. Like the life is going to change now. Life is going to change for him. Imagine when he, if these concussions continue to happen, if he just bumps his head on the car door, boom, another concussion. He can't walk anymore. He can't drive anymore. He might end up having seizures. He may end up having a brain bleed that sort of stumbles down this road of needing people like Dr. Komatar and myself. Well, I work on kids. Komatar, he's the adult man, does it all. He might need some sort of medical assistance urgently because we're not sort of prioritizing this nebulous injury of a concussion that doesn't look like a torn ACL or doesn't look like a bone dislocation or something like that. You see, oh, I see that. That looks bad. Ooh, that bone's out of place. I know what that looks like. Concussion, how does that feel? Like, are you just seeing stars? Are you just sort of like woozy? Like, what does that mean? I think there's sort of a lot of information around concussion that continues to need to be dispersed to the communities that are watching football, the communities that can help manage these diseases, from neuroscience to psychology to psychiatry to physicists thinking about rotational and linear and translational movements of the head and neck. All of this sort of needs to come together to create a clear picture for people who watch the game, love the game, engage in the game, to know this is serious, this is real. And unfortunately, Tua is serving as case study A, essentially, of what happens when you have these sort of injuries.
Now, E, let me ask you, at what point do you think the NFL or the head coach should step in and help protect Tua from himself, right? Let's just say he wants to come back, another concussion, wants to come back. I mean, what would you do in that situation? Can you protect Tua from himself?
Such a hard question, Dr. Komatar, because, again, there's so many layers to this sport. And this is a sport that you sign up to play with 100% injury rate. Like, it's not like, hey, there's a 20% or 70%. No, you're going to get hurt. I mean, as soon as you step out there in pre-practice, guys are hurting fingers, whatever. You can just be walking on the field. I've seen guys slip and hurt their knees. So when the NFL or when the head coach should step in, it's really hard for me to answer that, because ultimately I think this decision has to come from Tua. I don't believe that the Miami Dolphins head coach is really ever going to say, hey, man, you can't play, or hey, man, you shouldn't play. I don't think the league is going to do it, because, guys, it's 2 weeks removed. This would have happened by now, especially with all of us or all of other former players or ESPN. I mean, Myron was speaking about it on CNN, like these huge news outlets. If this was going to happen, it would have already happened. And I continue to use DeMar Hamlin as a, example or case study here. Guys, his heart stopped. And he's back as a starter still playing. So they're in the back of some people's mind, whether it's a GM, head coach, owner, fans, that's going to stick. Like, hey, man, a guy died on the field and he's still playing. So, hey, Tua, we need you. Get back out there. Tyreek Hill signed to come to the Dolphins to play with you. That's the pressure that this young man's going to face.
Did either of you guys ever face a similar situation in your college or pro career where you got knocked out or some really bad concussion and you questioned ever going back?
I would go real fast. So I had a concussion against the University of Florida in 2012. We were winning that game. It was senior day. And literally I got hit and made a cut to my left, and a linebacker came in and kind of caught me right on my jaw and hit me perfect at a spot where I did black out. Let's say, I don't know, maybe less than 10 seconds. But I remember going limp, ball comes out, fumble, they get the ball back. I go to the sideline, similar to what Myron was talking about, that quick impact test. And this is 2012, so we don't have the nuances with brain injury like we do now, or even the protocol on the sideline with coaches and stuff. And so They ask me 3 questions: what day is it? Where are we? And tell me a play. Boom, boom, boom. I can reel off that stuff easily, right? And I go back in because I wanted to finish strong. It was my last day as a senior there at Florida State. It was against the Gators, and I did cap off with a touchdown. We didn't win, but I still scored, and that was like a big thing for my ego. So never had a moment of thinking I don't want to play anymore. That was probably one diagnosed concussion I've had. I'm sure I've had more, but that never crossed my mind.
Yeah, for me, I never had sort of a knockout situation where I blacked out, but I definitely had moments where I was unsteady on my feet in practice and unsure of where I was. So I was still alert, didn't lose consciousness or anything. But yeah, that was a concussion. But what's so crazy is I'm speaking about it as an advocate now, as a neurosurgeon on the other end of this thing, but I didn't want to leave. I was like, look, man, I'm a 6th-round pick, 207. I already took a year and a half off of football to go be a Rhodes Scholar over in England. They already think that I'm not serious about football. They already think that I'm soft because I'm smart. They already think like I don't care about this sport. I'm not invested like my other teammates are. You think I'm gonna let a concussion stop me from playing? Same thing that E has been talking about. It's this sort of like this fight or flight mentality of like, I gotta get it. I have to get it. And I have to get it now. And I'm gonna give everything I got. And so even me knowing that I wanted to go to medical school, knowing that I wanted to be a brain surgeon like Ben Carson one day, I still stayed in the game. Still, coach, hey, Rolle, you good? I'm good. Wave him off. Went back in the next play. Because if I missed that rep in practice, the other guy might have gotten it. They might not have seen my skill. I wouldn't have had a chance to play more and all this sort of stuff. So it is not as easy as just stepping away. I say Tua should retire, but I know, like he says, there's so many layers and elements to this discussion and this decision that it's not just simple as a yes or no.
Yeah, I mean, you guys put it best, right? Everyone's commenting, and 99% of the people have no idea what they're talking about because they haven't played at that level. And understanding those competitive juices and the commitment and the money and the team and the organization, it's not like, hey, it's not good for me, so I'm going to retire. And I think you guys really highlighted that. Myron, do you think all players should be mandated to wear that guardian cap? I mean, it seems like a logical choice.
Yes, I do. I think so, for sure. I think it's one step forward towards protecting players. I've always said equipment's got to be better. I always said that guardian caps, even using that sort of like Q collar, if that helps, I mean, some people are saying that it helps with blood flow to the brain. It helps protect the brain, cushions it. I'm not sure. I think the evidence is still not sort of concrete on that. But using technology in the helmet system to provide objective data on impacts and collisions, so you can sort of remove the player from saying, I'm straight, coach, I'm good, and you can just look at the analytics on the sideline. I mean, the NFL and college now uses so much data to determine, should I go for it on 4th and 1? Should I go for it on 3rd and 6? Their personnel says 12 personnel. They have this particular player in. It's this down and distance. It's this time in the game. All of our stats that we put together, we just crunch the numbers really quickly, says we should run this particular play. It's not even like coaching anymore. It's not even like, using your instincts and intuition of being a coach. It's what does the data show me? So if we're going off data for plays and play calling, can we use data more effectively in our helmets and the equipment to protect these players and keep them around now and into the future?
So, E, what do you think Tua would do if he retired, right? People talk about him retiring and they paint a picture of him sitting at home twiddling his thumbs. But just like you're pointing out, there's so many options for someone of your skill set or his skill set. Give us 3 things that you think Tua could be doing if he retired from playing.
Well, again, that's a Tua answer, but there's a bunch of things. I mean, we know guys who have gone back to become neurosurgeons, like Myron. I mean, we know guys who have become teachers. And granted, Tua's in a completely different scenario because now this man is worth 9 figures, okay? So financially, he really doesn't have to do anything. If he wants to sit at home and twiddle his thumbs, guys, he's earned that. He can do that, in fact. But, as far as the acumen of, him being a quarterback, him being a well-spoken person, him being, a good-looking person, charismatic, a prized champion at Alabama, a legend there. He could easily go into broadcasting. He could easily go into coaching. He really could do whatever he wants. I think the world would be his oyster. Like, it would really be whatever he kind of wants to get into. So again, that's more of a Tua answer. But, I think for him, man, it's just enjoy your life. But at the end of the day, guys, that's why I say this is a Tua thing. Deep down, look, I miss playing. Do I wish that I was still playing? I do. And Myron knows that. There's some moments that I have where it's really hard on me because I watch friends who are still playing or guys who I think that at that time I was better than or whatever, but they had other opportunities because they were able to kind of patch it together and continue their career. You know, I had some injuries, had some other things not go my way, and I moved on to another job. And so, you know, it does bother me. And I'm sure deep down for Tua, injury or not, if he does retire, especially he's so young, not even 30 yet, I'm sure it will definitely bother him too.
That's the worst, E. I mean,
Yeah,
when you know
that regret. Yep.
that regret, you know, I mean, look, you have a beautiful family, you have a beautiful career, you got this great house that's coming that I can't wait to be in, probably more than
Me
you,
too.
in the theater room. You know, and I mean, and so same thing for me, man. I mean, I've been able to grow my family. I'm able to live my dream of being a brain surgeon, pediatric brain surgeon. Got a wonderful wife. Like things are outstanding, but I still think about, man, I'm better than that guy right now. I feel like I'm better than that dude. Why am I not playing still?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm actually doing what I should be doing, but I still want to play football. So it doesn't leave you, even if you have moved on to a career, into a life that is more conducive to doing the things you want to do, like raising a family, buying a home, doing all those things. And so, you know, that's just another complexity that adds to a decision. And you know, we'll see how he makes it, and if he listens to the people in his circle that know him best.
Well, Dr. Rick, I'll add this real fast. You got to think about, and you've been around enough athletes to understand this. We are high-level competitors and high-level executors. So there's not a lot of things in life, man, beyond playing in that arena in front of 60,000 in the stadium and then another 6 million at home every week to fulfill that type of adrenaline, that type of, you know, pain, or even like some guys literally would prefer to die on the field. Truthfully, as wild as that sounds, there are men who I know don't mind it. If they were to say, hey, man, I left it all literally out there on the field, they'd be okay with it. They would be. So that's why I say it's each man's individual decision.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys painted the perfect picture. I think people need to understand there's so many intangibles that the regular sportscasters cannot quantify. They can't put it into words. And you guys did. You know, we're gonna wrap it up because I know you guys got to roll. So Myron was very clear.
Was that pun
That
intended?
was a little play on words. You guys got to roll.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what I'm doing.
I had one earlier too. Yeah.
But you know, Myron was very clear he would retire. EJ was a little bit more nebulous. If you were Tua, you retire or not?
Boy, I'm not gonna lie, guys. When I was watching the Monday night game, I saw him over there with a baseball cap on and had a little earpiece in, he wants to still play, man. So knowing that if I'm Tua and knowing again that my best friend is Myron, Dr. Myron Rolle, I'm pretty sure Myron would not let me continue to play. Genuinely, he would call my mom, he'd call my dad, he'd call my wife, like, y'all cannot let this happen. So, man, it would literally be gut wrenching to make that decision. But I ultimately do think I would retire, and it's so easy for me to say because I can't imagine. Even when I decided to do TV, it was a hard decision. Truthfully, I was going to continue to grind with it and deal with it. Give me a shot, I can still play. But I was thinking then 20 plus years, 30 years down the road, I didn't want to be crippled. Genuinely, I didn't want to have a knee surgery like my dad has had them both. And so I decided to stop. So if I were to, I do think I would probably decide to retire too.
Listen,
hard
man,
decision.
Wonderful, wonderful interview. I think on top of showing that competitive edge that people don't get from normal, you know, interviews, I think you guys also show the life after football because both you guys have been ultra successful pursuing your dreams after playing in the NFL, and not enough credit goes to that, right? They need to show that people like yourselves that are talented can still pursue dreams and achieve greatness outside of football. And I think Tua needs to realize that, right? Like both you guys have achieved so much outside of the sport. Your life can't be defined by just one sport. And I think both you guys emulate that. And I think Tua needs to understand that.
Well, I appreciate that. And like I said, and we both kind of gave our own personal want to of still wishing to put on a helmet or wear cleats or be in the locker room with the guys. You know, we enjoy those types of moments, man. It's more than just winning and scoring touchdowns. It's also just the camaraderie. It's the film room study. It's the preparation. It's the joy that you get from a comeback victory, from icing it on third down. Like, it's a little small stuff that I don't get every day anymore. And that's just a part of it. But I do appreciate you. And like Myron said, I have to remind myself, hey, man, I'm blessed. I'm healthy. I'm good. Got a great family. Got a great job. And so it does take that sometimes because I'm so used to competing in the other way, the arena.
Yeah, and I would just add that, now, and I hope Tua can think about this too. Think about the blessings that football has given you, even up to this point, right? It's given you money, right? It's given you a platform. For me personally, it's given me a best friend like EJ. It's given me characteristics and traits that I use in the operating room today: discipline, focus, hard work, being coachable, mitigating pressure, knowing how to be flexible and adaptable. It's all the stuff I did on the football field. Now it's working in my professional vocation. So football has given me more than it's taken away. And I hope for this young man, he thinks about that. But no, I appreciate you, Dr. Komatar, for having us on and allowing us to speak our truths and kind of give a perspective that hopefully your listeners would appreciate for sure.
I mean, I would love to say go Knowles, but I don't think
you can do it.
You can do it. Come on. Come on. Just one time.
It's only a couple of weeks away, so we'll see. Look, man, those rivalry games, records don't matter. You know that.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. That's easy to say when you got a Heisman front runner as
Exactly. Yeah, man.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
All right, guys. Awesome time, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Much love, guys. Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Much love.